for Monday, January 16th, 2023. I'm Aaron Schatz, Editor-in-Chief of Football Outsiders, and I'm here with Mike Tanier. And we are here this Monday to break down 5/6 of Super Wild Card Weekend.
83.3%.
There's still a game.
We are 83.3% of the way through it.
But obviously a lot happened on Saturday and Sunday, and we're here to break it all down. Let's start by looking at the current Super Bowl odds from Football Outsiders, which, of course, are going to be different from what you get in Vegas. We have certain teams a little higher, other teams a little lower, but we now have the San Francisco 49ers as our Super Bowl favorite. We have them winning the Super Bowl 27.3% of the time. And then the Buffalo Bills, 24.3% of the time. That is because Buffalo and San Francisco have taken a nice little lead in weighted DVOA. There is a nice little gap now between them and the rest of the league.
Wow.
Then we have the Chiefs about 18% and the Eagles about 17% because they get a little boost from the bye week. Then the Bengals at 7%. They're very good, but we just have the Bills pretty high.
Right.
Cowboys, 2%. Giants, 2%. Jaguars, 2%. Buccaneers, 0.2%.
Tom Brady's putting that 0.2% on his bulletin board right now. But I guess my question looking at the 49ers up top is, of course, this will change as of tomorrow morning. But how much and in what way? Does it change considerably if they face the Cowboys versus if they face the Buccaneers?
It probably drops a little bit if they definitely are facing the Cowboys.
Right.
Because we have the Cowboys so much higher. The Cowboys are seventh in weighted DVOA. The Buccaneers are 24th.
Wow.
They have been not trending well.
Right. So baked into the 49ers right now is a possibility that they face a team that they beat, 35-7 a couple weeks ago in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah. So my guess is that if Dallas wins, that tomorrow we'll have San Francisco a little lower.
A little bit lower. I am surprised the Bills got that much of a boost based on a game they played yesterday that did not look like an overwhelming victory on the field.
It didn't, but here's the thing. A lot of what happened to the Bills yesterday was stuff that is not really repeatable. If I remember correctly, the Dolphins had something like 70 yards in interception returns on 2 interceptions.
Right.
And the Bills had 10 yards in interception returns on 2 interceptions. The Bills had 6.5 yards per play. The Dolphins only had 3.3 yards per play. When it comes to stuff that's actually predictive, the Bills dominated that game. So they came out of it with a 98% post-game win expectancy and like 60% DVOA for the game.
I would argue that the Bills' habit of making things harder for themselves on purpose is predictive because they seem, as I joked a little creepily about, they're too into it.
Yeah, that's true, except my argument would be, don't the Chiefs have the same thing going on? Like I said on Twitter earlier today, everybody is talking about how the Bills narrowly beat a team with a third-string quarterback 4 weeks ago, which is not forever ago. That's not September, okay? Right. 4 weeks ago, the Chiefs got taken to overtime by the Houston Texans.
Right.
The Houston Texans.
Yeah, fair as the Texans almost took the Cowboys to overtime. I'm not pretending the Texans were good. I think it's because the Bills do this regularly. Now, the Chiefs in the past did this kind of thing regularly, too. We remember the Chiefs games where it was like 50-yard play, 30 yards backwards and penalties, 50-yard play, et cetera, et cetera. Just saying it does seem like a concern moving forward, and that's why I'm surprised that they come out with such a bump. Although, like you said, it was a lot of big, splashy, and that happened type plays.
Yeah, I mean, I think that for both the Bills, and this goes for the Dallas Cowboys too, the positives outweigh the interceptions. Yeah. Right? Like, yes, there are a lot of interceptions this year, but the positive play by Allen and Prescott outweighs the interceptions. It outweighs the interceptions a little bit more for Allen than it does for Prescott. But I guess, I mean, the Bills do seem a bit inconsistent, but I guess I don't feel like they're always some kind of nightmare waiting to happen and they're always tripping over their own feet any more than any other team. They're just, no team this year is really super dominant unless you kind of think of the 49ers that way. And even with the 49ers, I mean, there's always a little bit of fear of Brock Purdy. What happens if the offense can't manufacture, for some reason, the kind of ridiculously open receivers that he had on Saturday? My God, was everybody wide open.
Right. And Mike Kurtz is pointing that out. Is like I don't want to say he just dumps it off to Kittle, C-Mac, and Debo, but kind of, it's not always just a little throw into the flat. Sometimes they're 15 yards downfield, but there's nobody within 5 yards of them.
Yeah. And Joel Mark says the Bengals were total trash yesterday too, which is true. They were not great. And they're lucky that the Bills will throw 16 Hail Marys before running the ball.
What do you think?
Run the ball more than you think that they have this year. I guess I'm Mr. Bills this year. I think the Bills are still the best team in the league.
Mr. Bills. What do you think about just the amount of deep shots the Bills take in these games when they are leading?
That's okay. I fully admit it's a little weird how many deep shots they take when they're ahead.
Yeah. Right.
But the number of comebacks that we've seen, ridiculous comebacks that we've seen, suggest that you don't want to throttle down as much as you maybe used to want to throttle down. Like, you do want to run clock, and I do think it's a problem that the Chargers couldn't run clock, but I think you don't want to be doing that in the second quarter or third quarter with a lead. Like, you still need to be trying to score. And so the Bills should be running their offense.
Right. The fourth quarter, up by 10, they took at least 5 shots up the sideline. Like deep shots. And they're throttling down, and we can talk about running, and sometimes running becomes like the straw man argument. We're talking about a more conservative game plan when you are a far superior opponent. And that's what frustrates me watching these Bills games, is they should be able to say, not necessarily run the ball. Oh, we'll run crossing routes to Beasley or McKenzie, or we'll set up a screen game. We'll do a couple more zone reads with our quarterback who can run the zone reads.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the playoffs now. Like, the risk factor is minimal. And it just seems like they're not optimizing the advantage they have. Instead, they're thinking in terms of, well, it's Josh Allen. The best thing we can do is just keep throwing deep. And it just creates opportunities for the opponent.
Yeah, but I mean, again, Miami needed a lot of things to go their way.
Yeah.
To keep in that game. I mean, yes, the receivers dropped a lot of passes, and Skylar Thompson played better than I think anybody expected. But like, the interceptions had to be like, interception returns are very random. They have a lot to do with like where the offensive players happen to be standing when I'm not talking about a pick six where it's like you throw that out and there's nobody in front of the guy and he just goes all the way. I'm talking about like a 30-yard pass down the field gets intercepted, and then it's like, where are the offensive players standing, and how well can an offensive player tackle, which tells you nothing about how good an offense is, right? So the fact that the Dolphins had so many yards on interception returns, I don't think tells you anything about the Bills at all.
I've got one other question about the rankings before we move on. We're watching an injury situation with the Bengals and Jonah Williams. That's not factored in at this point. Right?
That's not factored in at this point, just because the fact is that I really only factor into the playoff. I mean, the ratings don't factor that in.
Right.
And the playoff odds, generally, I only factor in quarterbacks and a handful of selected other really, really important players.
Right.
And I've never really factored in offensive linemen much, although, because Jonah Williams is not a great, like, if it was like Teron Armstead, I might factor it in a little bit, but or Trent Williams, we did earlier this year. I factored that in, but only at like 1 or 2% of DVOA. Right. Offensive linemen just don't, as good important as they are, single offensive linemen don't move the needle that much. Now, the problem for the Bengals is we're now down to 3 backups.
Yeah, and that's it. It's an accretion of injuries. It's not like he's significant, but over the course of the last 6 weeks, an accretion.
So that's like a weak link and a weaker link, and then a really weaker link.
Yeah, you don't have a chain. You just have a couple of links.
Yeah. We have a sort of order we wanted to go in, but I'll just scrap that and take a couple of questions here. Let's start with Jose 21 Crisis. What do you make of the Jaguars? Which half do you trust?
It doesn't matter because they're going to lose to the Chiefs. I mean,
my answer is I trust both halves, right?
Right.
I mean, I'm a big believer in you take all the information that you have and you synthesize it to figure out what you think of things.
Right.
And the fact is the first half is information and the second half is information.
Right.
They both happened. They're both important, by the way. So are the last 10 Jaguars games. Those are also important. And you have to synthesize all of that into the information that you have. And what the information that you have says about the Jaguars is this is a top 10 offense and a bad defense and not as good as the Chiefs on either side of the ball.
Right. All right. And that's just it. And it's also, I would consider it like a high volatility team that will mix big plays with big mistakes. We've seen that throughout the year. Okay. Lawrence avoided interceptions for most of the year, but he was fumble prone. So this might be an extension of that, what we saw in that game. And on the defensive side, we see a good edge rush and one very good corner and not a lot else on their defense. And then that creates exploitable mismatches. So yeah, I take the whole thing into account as well. It seems like this is the end of the run.
Flynn Haggerty says, Brock Purdy just throws the ball to guys on his team. Aren't we just talking about other contending teams where this is a problem for them? It seems like it may not be as easy as people think. Now, on one hand, I do think you have to give Purdy credit for how well he is managing that 49ers offense. On the other hand, let's talk about how open the guys on his team were compared to I'm talking a good offensive coordinator here.
Okay.
Giants receivers.
Right.
How open are the Niners receivers compared to the Giants receivers? And the Giants have good offensive coordination.
Right. Yes. So that's part of it. I think I think Flynn is talking a little bit about Allen's interceptions, a little bit about Prescott's interceptions. And the fact is these guys are expected to do more. And Prescott is expected to do far more for his offense. Allen is expected to do probably too much for his offense. I think he could throttle down and eliminate the turnovers and still get some of those plays. So that's what has been unique for the years about the 49ers under the Shanahan, whether it was Garoppolo or whoever at quarterback, is they have this unbelievable yak capability, and it does distort the perception of the quarterback play.
Did we see Rodger Sherman's tweet that said Brandon Staley is just Jeff Saturday with a Football Outsiders premium account? Yes, I saw that. I also saw Mina Kimes' tweet that the big winner of this weekend was DVOA.
I'm sorry, I'm speechless. That's the most amazing thing. And Staley has the premium account, but he doesn't use it. That's the best part of that. It's like he had it and he looked it over last year, and then he got scared. I'm like, I'm not going to go for it anymore. That's amazing. That's
all right.
And
so,
as well.
So again, we're going out of order here. First of all, speaking of great tweets by people, Mina Kimes' tweet about big weekend for DVOA.
Yes.
Am I not taking enough of a victory lap? Do I need to be taking more of a victory lap online about this, about the Vikings? Because I don't want to be a jerk about it.
I feel like some people would be parading around everywhere, with their little mustache and, talking about how phenomenal. It's not our style. That's not your style. But what have you done? I don't know what kind of victory lap you've made.
I think the only victory lap I posted was, oh my God, the Vikings did not do the Vikings thing. I can't believe it. And then I said, by the way, the Vikings are now 11-1 in one possession games.
That's funny. That's good. So you're doing the subtle approach.
I'm doing the subtle thing. I was not like, see, look how smart DVOA is. Because it's not like the Giants were like, first of all, it's not like the Giants were super high in DVOA. And then as the other people have pointed out, we had Bills number 1 and the Bills only won by 3 points. So,
right.
But yes, I think that there's a little bit, I think that our view of the Vikings is a little bit vindicated, but everybody's view of the Vikings is a little bit vindicated. Analytics has spread far enough that everybody knew that the Vikings were fraudulent, right? We just had them lower than everybody else. And so when they played another fraudulent team in the Giants,
right,
we were like, okay, by the way, the Giants are actually better. We picked the Giants.
Right.
FO Plus Picks had that as the pick, was the Giants to win the game outright. But I'm not taking like a huge victory lap. But it's a lot nicer than if the Vikings had gone on a freaking run to the Super Bowl. That would have sucked.
That would have been bad. And you know what? It's too on the Viking side of things. We're Vikings fans, and you don't argue with fans about their team when their team is winning games. That's not an argument you win. And then there was the contrarian element, and like you would try to stack things up that the Vikings did well. I don't think that was there. So it's like winning a straw.
I don't feel the need to rub this in Viking fans' face because there were very few Viking fans who came at me about this.
Right.
Most Viking fans were like, "Yeah, this is weird."
Aaron, it comes down to how comfortable your troll level is, how much trolling you want to do.
Yes,
you don't.
And I just, unlike some other folks on the internet, I'm not very high on the troll level. It's just not my style.
No, not your style. Leave the trolling to those of us who love it.
Okay. People asking about what do you think was the worst decision this week? Mike McDaniel's inability to get plays in, or Kirk Cousins checking down on 4th and 8?
I want to turn this around to you. Have you seen the pro Kirk Cousins Kirkanon has like come out?
Kurt Warner had a video. To me, it's just Kirk has said that he thought he was going to get sacked. And, look, I can't tell you what it feels like to play quarterback and have a pass rusher bearing down on you. It did not look to me like he was going to get sacked. Also, I feel like he needed to throw to Osborne.
Yes.
Osborne was the throw in the middle of the field on the dig route. And that Hawkinson on his choice route made the wrong choice. Okay. If Hawkinson is running a choice route, the choice route on the stick needs to be to the sticks. That needs to be the choice.
Right.
He made the wrong choice.
Right. So that's bad. Hawkinson, he's a veteran player at this point. It just seems odd to do that. I thought when I was looking at that is like he's clearing underneath that Jefferson has more room to go and that he doesn't think he's the intended unless everybody drops in the zone. But
that would have worked. That meant he would have been clearing underneath if Jefferson had gone in. But Jefferson went out. Here I am diagramming on my desk.
Yes,
nobody can see my
hands.
As
you can see down here, yes.
Not to mention this is also a podcast, so really nobody can see my hands. I will say this for Kirkanon. Kirk Cousins is not the reason they lost that game.
No.
Kirk Cousins is the reason they didn't convert 4th and 8. But the fact that they were stuck on 4th and 8 down by a touchdown is because their defense was terrible.
Right. Their defense was terrible. But against Kirkanon, this is a $30-some million veteran quarterback.
Right.
This is the play. And if you throw an incompletion there or you try to scramble, that's one thing. But when you just say, I am giving it to that tight end in the flat 6 yards away, that is such a distillation of the Kirk
Cousins. Who had McKinney right on him.
Who had a defender right on him. Like 4th and 8 with the playoffs on the line at age 33 after so many years in the league. That's what you do. It's a distillation of the Kirk Cousins experience and everything we say that's bad about him. That's Mike McDaniel calling timeouts at the end of that game and then calling what looked like he was reading a 500
He says he thought they had gotten a first down, and that's why he was so late to get in a play on 4th and 1.
Okay, well, that's then he was about to call a first down play on 4th and 1.
Yeah.
That's completely clueless.
I don't know where wires got crossed there that he thought that they had converted, but they did not convert.
Okay, and he must have then tried to change the play suddenly, which is why there was still 2 seconds left.
Yeah, apparently that's the case.
And he's in this situation because he's calling timeouts because, again, it's like a college basketball game at the end. Oh, my inbound pass isn't going to work here. Let me call a timeout to get a perfect play in. You don't have the luxury of using your third timeout in that situation.
Yep, I agree.
Down by a field goal. That would have been the get the field goal unit on. They would have lost the game not getting the field goal unit out there to tie, theoretically, if he doesn't make that long play call. So it's mine. But I mean, again, I don't want to talk too much about the Dolphins because I have no idea what kind of black hole of chaos we're about to get into if Stephen Ross decides he's got to bug up his butt for Tom Brady or whatever. But just a weird way to end the season for them.
All right, let's talk about angry owners then. Spanos, the Chargers.
Thanos.
Who takes the fall for the Chargers meltdown? I don't know if you saw the long thread and I cannot remember the name of the reporter who posted it, but it's someone who knows the Chargers situation well, and he said he does not think the Chargers would go after Sean Payton.
Okay.
That they don't want to spend the money and they don't want to spend the draft picks that they would have to send to New Orleans. And that he doesn't think Staley would be fired.
I don't think Staley would be fired. I agree. That organization never wants to spend the money.
Jim Trotter. Yes, it was Jim Trotter.
Yeah. So I agree. I don't think they want Payton. I think we're going to see a sacrificial yeeting of Joe Lombardi, and there will be much rejoicing across Twitter when that happens. But I think Staley should be accountable for the last 3 weeks, for the last 2 weeks, however you want to play it, starting with leaving Mike Williams out there to get injured, which snowballs into what happened this weekend.
Yeah, I agree. And you know, you're talking to somebody who a year ago was one of Brandon Staley's biggest fans, and was defending some of the things that he did against the Raiders in the last game of the regular season last year. And this year has just been really mismanaged. Like, even though he made the playoffs this year and didn't make it last year, and I don't want to blame him for the injuries that they had during the regular season.
Right.
The weird disappearance of his aggressiveness, and then it comes back occasionally, and then it goes away again, and then also playing the starters. It's tough because you don't want to blame him. Why would you blame him for playing the starters in Week 18 and not blame Todd Bowles for playing his starters in Week 18? But some of that is how much he played his starters, right? Todd Bowles was like, okay, everybody get a quarter or two to stay in rhythm and then get out.
Right. And again, Bowles has Tom Brady declaring he needs. I mean, that's what happens.
Tom Brady says, "I'm playing," and then the coach has no choice. Yes.
Right. To Justin Herbert, you say, "No, you're not playing," and because we need to get these guys out of there, and you rest them because he's not Tom Brady. And again, you're right. Staley kept them in there longer, and it goes back, even during the season, a couple of guys are bringing this up. When Herbert got injured, and he kept playing him through that. I think a lot of that 6-6, that early part of the season when they were not doing well, Herbert had nobody to throw to, and he had the rib injury. Sit him down for one of those games. If you might have to take an L in one of those games, you might get 2 wins back on the other side.
Hitchhiker's Pie puts out the Bucs left guard Leverett was injured in that last game, and now they have a more subpar left guard play in Gadecki, so maybe Bowles should get some flack.
That's fine. I don't think that the Buccaneers were tremendously well coached this year.
Yeah, but
I don't think Leftwich blew.
I don't think they're replacing Bowles after 1 year, but Staley after 2, and I think there's so much frustration about that offensive scheme and Herbert. Somebody has to go. Right.
And I think Lombardi gets sort of over criticized because we have to pump Herbert up. But Lombardi's been bad. The horizontality of that, and again, I don't want to take it all the way up to a Kyle Shanahan level here, but these guys should be able to get open in space for yak, and they rarely get that opportunity.
Yeah. Someone said about Harbaugh's Jose Crisis says Harbaugh's end of game management should also be criticized. I think some of that is just when you have a backup quarterback, you can't really run the hurry up the way you want to.
Right. That's definitely part of it. And that game was chaos. But yeah, that's as Flynn was talking about. Remember, I always bring this up. Stephen Ross was a Michigan guy. He's got a hankering for a Harbaugh, and it won't be John, it'll be Jim. And Jim Harbaugh assured everyone that he thinks he'll be in Michigan next year, and apparently has been having conversations behind the scenes.
What is the Ravens, speaking of John Harbaugh, what does the Ravens offseason look like, and what do you think about J.K. Dobbins criticizing Greg Roman's play calling and then kind of taking it back this morning?
Right. I'm popping the balloon inside. I'm on a Greg Roman watch. He's another guy who, people for years have said this offense, this inability to create opportunities for the wide receivers, working the middle, doing anything but a screen and bomb situation. I think it's all true. I think Roman's offense reaches a certain point and it peaks, and it's not even as interesting and creative as it was in the early Lamar Jackson era, even when Lamar's healthy, I should say. Healthy, both of them.
I've got to admit, look, I was a believer that Lamar Jackson was going to be in there in the long term, that I think that they can work out a contract deal with him, that he will give up on his desire for fully guaranteed contract because nobody is going to give that to him.
Yes.
And that they would work something out. It probably would start with them having to franchise tag him. But now, after last night, I'm not so sure, because I'm less concerned with the fact that he didn't travel with the team and more concerned with the fact that people that are close to the Ravens situation, like Jason La Canfora, are now coming out and saying, yeah, this relationship is toast. Like Jason La Canfora is close with the Ravens folks, and he was like, yeah, Lamar Jackson will be playing in the NFC South next year.
At this point, I believe that more than I would have like 48 hours ago. You've got Lamar Jackson on Instagram writing glurges and poetry about how, if you have something special, you nurture him. He's writing psalms, etc. Instead of like coming out and like having these real conversations, you're seeing things like Tyler Huntley grunting little remarks about Lamar and then them getting scrubbed off of the official transcript. There's all the makings of just behind the scenes drama. That said, the Ravens saying free agency, goodbye, Lamar. Like that
it's
is
never going to happen.
It's a huge step. So
what? No, it would be a tag. It would be a tag and trade.
Right. It's the tag and trade, or tag and get in here. And I still believe it's salvageable. It's a tag and get in here, and let's see what's really going on. But Jackson's going to be it's just a strange situation for Jackson right now, because you got Michael Vick criticizing him.
Yeah. And then Robert Griffin said the opposite. Robert Griffin was like, I played with an injury and look what happened to me.
Right. It's hard to make sense. It's hard to say this isn't a big drama because both sides are acting like it's a big drama.
Yeah.
And
BU Vandal says, I don't blame the Ravens on this. Jackson is great, but he could go so many directions based on injuries and his reliance on his legs.
And this is what I wrote about in September. Like I wrote literally, what happens if he has a season that ends with a lingering ankle injury that raises questions? I wrote this in September. This was my victory lap.
Right.
You wind up in this situation. So betting on himself, I don't know what the future holds. I don't know what a sign and trade deal looks like.
Yeah, and I don't know what the price tag would be. Joel Marks asks, what would be the price tag for Jackson? It would have to, it would be similar to Deshaun Watson, I would think. Because you have to give up a lot for the rights to him, and then you have to sign him to a big deal. So you're talking about a similar trade package to the one that Cleveland gave up to get Deshaun Watson.
And for a guy who has officially on the record had a lingering ankle injury that kept him out of a playoff game that originally had a 2 to 3 week timeline, where there are questions and whispers about whether some of this was a business decision. A lot of owners are going to go through that whole rigmarole and be like, no, thank you.
I also think if they do trade Lamar Jackson, then you really get rid of Greg Roman, because there's no reason to have Greg Roman as the offensive coordinator if you have a standard quarterback.
Right. Then you move on there. Maybe that is a package set of what goes on here. But then what do the Ravens do at quarterback? There's not like this easy solution for this. I don't think Watson was better than Jackson when healthy. Yeah,
Steakerman says Watson is better than Jackson. I think there is an argument to be made that Jackson is better than Watson. And of course, Jackson does not. He has is injury issues, which is a different issue than Watson's off-field issues. So it's not completely comparable.
Right.
Joel Mark says, if you are the Lions, would you send 2 firsts, a second, and Jared Goff for Lamar Jackson?
No, maybe no.
You would have to dramatically change what your offense is to fit Lamar Jackson.
You've just taken away
your opportunity. You have to sign him to a big contract.
You have taken away your opportunity to upgrade your defense completely.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Right. And that's I think that's too much. And I think the Lions, looking at what they're looking at right now, would say that's too much.
And the other thing, especially because if you're the Lions, you could just draft a quarterback.
Yes.
They have a high enough pick that they could draft Anthony Richardson or Levis.
Exactly. Oh, God.
The Ravens also, by the way, I'll point out, have a lot of defensive free agents. Marcus Peters is a free agent.
Right.
Kyle Fuller is a free agent. Jason Pierre-Paul and Justin Houston were just on 1-year deals. So they're edge rushers. They've got young edge rushers, but the veterans are free agents. So there's going to be some turnover on that defense.
Blow everything up. rebuild. John Harbaugh resigns, goes to Miami. I have no idea. I'm just making stuff up.
I don't think that'll happen. Speaking of blowing up, what do the Vikings do this offseason? What happens with them?
They don't blow things up, but golly, I would love to see it. And I think I talked about this in walkthrough. The way they're built, I think they're like 10 million over the cap right now.
20
million over the cap. Yeah. They'll move money around as they so often do. They'll say goodbye to a couple of their linebackers who are older and need to move on.
Yeah, Kendricks, they can save 9.5 mil. Jordan Hicks, 5 mil, and Zadarius Smith, who's still really good, but you can save 13.5 million if you cut it.
You might be able to I don't have it in front of me. You might be able to
restructure, right?
Restructure that one and keep him. But like, I think they're going to try to run this back. The problem is when you try to run this season back and you get a little less luck in one-score games and you get your first place schedule, you're a 6-win team. Yeah. That's my opinion. So
yeah. I mean, not to mention, what happens to them if Justin Jefferson gets hurt?
That's true. And they've got a budget now to give him the contract. Because he's going to get the wide receiver contract. Whatever the next wide receiver contract looks like, he's going to get that. So I don't want to wish an injury on the young man at all, but like they're going to have to budget for that. And that's going to affect these things like Zadarius Smith. For years, the trick was extend Cousins. I don't know if they can keep extending at this point. They'll probably just status quo with him, but status quo. Kirk Cousins, we just saw that yesterday afternoon.
Were the Seahawks the only winners among the wild card losers?
Yeah, we put that on the outline because it's like you can look at like there is pessimism in Baltimore. There is pessimism, I would imagine, in Minnesota right now. There's got to be optimism in Seattle, right?
Yeah, I mean, Geno Smith, they have to re-sign him and bring him back or draft a quarterback or both.
Yes, they can do both. And that's what's the most amazing thing about this. They could get Will Richardson or Stroud or Young, the three actually good first of the four good first round prospects. So they won't be able to get,
or if they want to, Levis, who you don't like.
No, I don't like Levis because he's bad. But they could get him if they think otherwise. I am not taking the bait. This is going to be 4 months.
I will give just a quick early Cubase preview.
Okay. Oh God, let's do it.
Cubase is surprisingly mediocre feeling about Stroud and Young because they have so much talent around them.
Yeah.
Because they have so much talent around them, and they didn't blow. Despite having all that talent around them, they did not blow numbers away.
Fair enough. I like Richardson a lot. I don't know if we have anything on.
It does not like Richardson at all. Mostly because he only has 1 year.
You're setting me up.
Developmental project. He's a developmental project.
You're setting me up that it loves Levis.
No, I'm not.
Okay, good.
No, I'm not setting you up that it loves Levis.
But the Seahawks can make all these.
Stroud and Young, there's surprisingly less room between Stroud and Young and Levis than you think there should be.
Interesting.
But it doesn't love Levis. Levis is third.
Does it love somebody?
No.
Okay. If it loves somebody, it
doesn't love anybody. Doesn't love anybody.
Good. That leaves us free to to angrily troll against certain prospects.
I mean, I still think you take quarterbacks high. It doesn't matter what Cubase says. You got to take the shot.
Right.
But the main thing it says is Richardson's. I think the main thing it says is Stroud and Young, you have to consider the talent around them. That Richardson is a project.
Fair. That's fair.
Which I think is fair.
Mark, I would say, I don't know who's at 20. Right now, it sounds like a pipe dream, but I don't know because last year Malik Willis this time had buzz, and Malik Willis is probably not.
I wonder if 20 is Seattle's other pick. Is that Seattle's second pick?
That's Seattle's other pick, because that would be
a dream scenario for Seattle to be able to take a quarterback with the second pick rather than the first pick. Yeah,
that would be great. Then maybe that's a gambit they can play. They can re-sign Geno, get a top defensive player at the beginning, and then like sit and watch.
Their defense needs work. Their pass rush needs work.
They need an actual like scary young edge rusher, and among other things.
Yeah. Who are you more worried about after Sunday's close calls, the Bills or the Bengals?
Bengals, and we talked about this earlier in the podcast, because of the Jonah Williams injury, on top of the Lel Collins injury. I forget which of the guards is hurt, but it's another guard. And
the right guard, I don't. It's is it? Yeah, I don't remember which guy.
Kappa. I made my own person, Kappa and Karras. I made a person out.
Karras is the center. He's not hurt. But I don't remember who is the right guard. But whoever is the right guard is, I think it's Kappa, yeah. Because Volson is not hurt. That's the left guard.
Volson's not hurt. And they did the right thing. They kept a lot of the backup, the former starters, the longtime starters as backups, so you had continuity. But then when I see these names coming in,
you're like, oh, God, Jackson Carbon and Hakeem Adeniji. God, please don't do this to me. No. And look, I know Von Miller is hurt and Von Miller is special, but the Bills still have Gregory Rousseau and Basham and Espinoza. Like, they still have a good edge rush.
Right. They have a good edge rush. They get pressure up the middle. They blitz judiciously. You see opportunities where when they're blitzes, they do get home. And we've seen that in the last couple of weeks. They needed their pass rush yesterday because they manufactured problems for themselves with turnovers, and their pass rush kept consistently coming through. I think the same thing happened to a degree in Week 18. I'm worried about the Bengals not being able to protect Joe Burrow in that game.
Yeah. I wonder, maybe I'll see if Kevin Cole wants to come on Thursday's show and talk about his new quarterback system that tries to adjust for the quality of receivers and the quality of drops and a bunch of stuff. Because it interestingly has Burrow only 8th or 9th this year because his receivers are so good.
Which tracks. It's Jamar Chase and company. And
yeah,
there were a couple of times last night where it's just Chase running the guy off and coming back.
Yep.
And Tyreek did the same thing. Like they're desperate to create some offense, run your guy off and come back and get 8 yards, 9 yards, 10 yards. Only a handful of players can do that. Hill, Jefferson, Chase. When you've got them, it's a major factor.
We wrote on the outline here, make our best argument for why the Jaguars can beat the Chiefs. I can't make one, honestly. Honestly, the Jaguars, it would be just bounces of the ball and special teams. And I mean, the fact is the Chiefs are better than the Jags in every other way than special teams. And they haven't played a below average offensive game since week 9.
Wow. Yeah. In the old days, I would have done that self-destructive. Oh, we're going to run the most complicated play at the goal line as the Chiefs, and we're going to make a mistake. You see less and less of that from the Chiefs this year. They're more consistent on all.
I mean, I think if the Jaguars win, you're talking about random variation and a shootout.
Yeah.
The Chiefs' defense has improved over the course of the year, but you're talking about the Chiefs' defense just playing the Jaguars just lacerating them, and then a big shootout, and the Jaguars pull it out. But it just seems very unlikely.
Right. That's probably it. If you get that 5% critical hit chance, it is that this was a 38-35 barn burner, and so the batted passes makes a difference. Toe-to-toe, normal situations, 19 times out of 20, it's a Chiefs win.
Make your best argument for the Giants beating the Eagles.
Not as grim, I don't think.
No, to me, first of all, the best argument is Jalen Hurts is not 100% healthy.
Okay.
That's a reasonable possibility. They only had 5.1 yards per play in week 18 against a lot of Giants backups, even on defense, right? Like, that was not a great performance by the Eagles against the Giants backups in that game. Yes, like 6 weeks ago or something, they clobbered the Giants, but when they played 2 weeks ago, they did not clobber the Giants. So I think the Giants, Hurts is not at 100%, and the Giants offense gets guys open, even against the quality Eagles corners, I think it's doable. It seems more doable than the Jaguars against the Chiefs.
Yeah. Not
as a diss on the Eagles, more as it's just like I can see ways in which the Giants can attack them. But I mean, I still think the Eagles are pretty clearly the favorite.
The week 18 was odd because, yes, the Giants had almost all backups on the field, and the Eagles needed to win the game, and yet the Eagles seemed like they were running a 5-play game plan. If you watch it, it was almost like they were anticipating a a rematch coming, and they weren't opening things up as much.
Some of that, but they read DVOA and expected that the Vikings would lose.
That's it. They've got a subscription too. That's what happened to Brandon Staley's subscription. He gave them the password for it. That said, I mean, the one thing is, late in the second half of the season, the Eagles have committed more turnovers, and have forced fewer turnovers. Hurts again, Hurts likes to throw the YOLO ball. They like to throw the YOLO ball. That's been a few interceptions in the second half of the season. You do have Eagles receivers who fumble sometimes after the play. A.J. Brown will fumble trying to get that extra yard. Quez Watkins will fumble. There's been a couple things like that. It's simply a turnover situation, and that's the default argument for any time there's a heavy favorite.
Yeah, the thing is, the Giants' defense is bad, right? The best part of the Giants' defense is the interior defensive line, and the Eagles have the best offensive line in the game.
And they're built between the zone read plays and the RPOs to kind of neutralize a lot of that advantage. And yeah, they can control the interior pass rush. They can control Lawrence and Williams and everybody. So it seems like a pretty strong matchup for the Eagles. And yeah, Giants, Vikings, both of those defenses were just bad yesterday.
They looked they're bad by our numbers, and they looked worse. I think Bill Barnwell, someone said to him, "You don't really believe DVOA that the Vikings are the 6th worst team in the league?" And he said, "It looks like the Vikings have the 10th best offense and the 40th best defense." That averages out to 25.
That's about right.
Let's finish up by talking about tonight a little bit more. We did a little bit of a preview of this on the Thursday show, but we should talk some more tonight about Monday night with the Dallas Cowboys and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa Bay, of course, won 19-3 in week 1. Mm-hmm. Both of these teams have declined in recent weeks, but Dallas has declined much less than Tampa Bay has declined. Tampa Bay's pass defense has gone from 6th in weeks 1 to 9 to 28th in weeks 10 to 18. Yeah.
Unbelievable. And some of that was against Brock Purdy.
Yes. Who they would have to face again if they win this game.
And so, right. And some of that was against Sam Darnold. And against some of it was against Joe Burrow, et cetera. Some of it, it was against the Taysom Hill, Andy Dalton experience. So it's for me, it's all about sending the serial numbers off of these teams and say this is not a Tom Brady team that therefore has like all these assets versus a Cowboys team that's guaranteed to collapse because the narrative
because they wear the star on their helmets and Jerry Jones is their owner.
Right. And when you take that away, you have a team with a great pass rush, although it's declined lately, and a very, very good quarterback who has a couple of guys to throw to and have been able to score points against everybody, against this other team that their offense is a rock that looks like it's something from 74.
The Cowboys offense, based on DVOA, the Cowboys offense has only been a little bit better than the Tampa Bay passing offense.
Okay.
But the Tampa Bay running game sucks so bad. So what's going on in part with DVOA is that DVOA is judging Tampa Bay based on similar situations. Okay. And Tampa Bay is always in 2nd and long and 3rd and long.
Right.
Because their running game sucks so bad.
Right.
So what DVOA is saying is, compared to how an average team does in 3rd and long, Tampa Bay is slightly better than the average team.
Right.
It's just they're always in 3rd and long because the running game is so bad. And then the other thing is Tampa Bay, for all the good players they have on their defense, that Dallas defense has been better than Tampa Bay all year. Mm-hmm. And the Dallas defense has declined in the second half, less than the Tampa Bay defense has declined.
Right.
Oh, and by the way, the Cowboys also have a huge advantage in special teams.
Interesting.
They were 10th in special teams. Tampa Bay 31st.
I have no concept of the Buccaneers special teams. I just realized
they sucked this year. Yeah, the big differences are field goals and Dallas when Dallas kicks off, and then punt returns for Dallas were good this year.
Interesting. Yeah, I can't stack up anything for the Buccaneers except Brady Magic. I mean, that's really where we're at. And Brady Magic seems to be a thing that works against the Cardinals, this year.
It really, okay. The thing that the numbers say is, and I'm going to say this again, Tampa needs to not run the ball on first down. Don't run the ball on first down.
They will.
First down, Tampa's offense, 6th passing, 30th running. Dallas's defense, 20th against the pass, 6th against the run. It is so set up for the Tampa to almost always pass on first down. I mean, not always, right? It's never always. You always have to mix in. But oh my God, do not just keep running Leonard Fournette into the line for 2 yards over and over again. Just don't do it.
And yet, it will happen.
Yes, Brady magic is your only way to win. Put it in Brady's hands. Brady magic. Like, that is your way. That is the way. You got to do that.
Right. Because, again, I think the logic is, we're going to keep him out of problems where he's going to face the pass rush. No, you're not. You're putting him in 2nd and 9. He's facing the pass rush. You're putting him in 3rd and 8. He's facing the pass rush. Give him 1st and 10. That's probably your best chance to not face a pass rush. Just looking over the props, I don't care. They're not that interesting. It's Cowboys minus 2.5. Am I right?
Yes. Cowboys, it's up to yes, it's minus 2.5. Yes. I would take the Cowboys. Absolutely. Minus 2.5.
Cowboys. Take the Cowboys. I have no sense of the over under.
45.5. Our system takes the over, and overs have won all five wildcard games so far.
Yes, it was a overfest. I'd probably take the over too, but I'm definitely heading towards the Cowboys, especially laying less of the field.
Here's one more stat. Ready? Dallas's offense in late and close situations. So anything in the second half within a touchdown. Second in the league.
Oh, good.
Buccaneers defense in late and close situations. 31st.
That's stunning.
Considering they kept giving away leads that then Tom Brady had to come back on.
And
beat Tom Brady.
But the Cowboys defense is set to prevent the fourth quarter. Oh, we're leading by 10. Here comes the catastrophe. The Cowboys defense is set to stop that.
I mean, I think that they are. So
well, I mean, that's what the late and close was, right?
Well, no, that was offense. That was the offense is second. So the Cowboys, if it's late and close, the Cowboys offense against the Bucs defense is way in favor of Cowboys offense.
They can get a bucket. If they need to get a bucket late in the game, they're going to get the bucket.
Yep.
All right.
So big play Dak, I guess.
Big play Dak. You get the Cowboys, they get in there. They beat
But it's not. We're talking like it's unrealistic for Tampa Bay to win. It's not. Tampa Bay has home field advantage. They have Brady. There's the possibility Dak makes mistakes. Like 2.5 is not a ridiculous line. I think it's too low. I'd make it more like 4. But still, I mean, there's a 35% chance that Tampa Bay wins.
Yeah, we're saying we feel an edge.
Yes.
That's pretty strong for the Cowboys, and we're rolling with it. Yeah, that's
So I mean, and hey, that would set up. Look, either Tom Brady goes home or Cowboys 49ers.
Yeah,
a whole chance to relive the history of Cowboys 49ers. So
yes, we have Brian needs 30,000 words. Brian Knowles needs
30,000 words on the history of the Cowboys and the 49ers
off the top of his head, because it's Brian and it's the 49ers. But yeah.
All right. Want to remind everybody that we're in the playoffs. And so we've finished one round. So total playoffs, best ball is out. But you can still play all kinds of weekly fantasy contests with our sponsors at underdogfantasy.com, especially pick'em games where you just pick a player's chances to go higher or lower than projected stat lines, even in states where traditional prop betting is not available. Underdog is the fastest growing fantasy site around. Join the fun at underdogfantasy.com or download Underdog in your app store. And please use promo code OUTSIDERS to double your first deposit up to $100 and let them know we sent you. All right. That does it for today's show. Wednesday, Jackson and Kale will be here with the news show talking about the coaching carousel, 1 p.m. Eastern. And then Mike and I will be back Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern, to preview Super Divisional Weekend.
Super. Everything is super these days.
It's going to be super now.
Supersize me.
Super divisional weekend.
Super Pro Bowl skills competition.
Ultra Super Bowl. Ultra super divisional weekend. Until then, everybody, thanks for reading Football Outsiders. Please subscribe to the show down below on YouTube or Twitch or your favorite podcast app. Please listen to our other shows. We will see you on the Football Outsiders Discord. We will see you on the Football Outsiders discussion threads. Have a good couple days.